The great Sentinel Prime is a character quintessential to most modern Transformers stories, but he wasn't always like that. In the 1980s, he was simply known as U-Haul Bot and fought the Bot who would be retconned as Primer and the Bot who led a coup against the Quintessons. But then the year 2007 came and Sentinel was added to the mainstream. A character meant for Rodimus, but Hasbro didn't want a legacy character to be seen as a dickhead. So Sentinel took the fall. He was insufferable. A bot whose only purpose was to annoy the audience and create a love triangle between Optimus and the bot who would eventually become Black Arachnia. He did everything for himself and even worked with Lockdown to make himself seem better than he usually was. He would stay that way until Dark of the Moon in 2011 made him a household name and the only villain in the Bay films with an actual story. He was the original Autobot leader and the Einstein of his civilization, as director Miriam would put it. He had the means to bring Cybertron back to his former glory, but he underestimated the humans and their faith in Optimus Prime, which would eventually lead to his downfall. He was a villain that you felt some sympathy for, especially after Optimus executed him. In 2024, 13 years after Dark of the Moon reinvented the character for the better, Transformers will grace our screens with the most detestable villain in modern Transformers history. Sentinel was seen as the saviour of Cybertron, the icon of Iacon, but in reality, he created an artificial class divide and a new subsection of Cybertronians, the Miners, just so that they could pay off his debts to Cybertron's actual rulers, the Quintessons. He killed 12 of the original 13 in order to get the power he craved, which led to the Matrix of Leadership being lost to time and Cybertron dying world with barely any energon. He plucked the cogs from the newly online chests of many bots just so they could mine for the limited energon left on Cybertron, and no one but Arachnid, the Death Trackers, Alpha Trion and Sentinel himself knew what was going on. He's the worst villain I've ever seen in a kid's film. I still love him. His cocky attitude, his mannerisms, and idiosyncrasies all make for a villain that you just want to punch, but I just want to what? Excuse that Freudian slip. Now, after that long-winded introduction, hello and welcome to Jinx, where today we'll be putting Sentinel Prime on trial by examining all of his figures that I own. Welcome to the trial of Sentinel Prime. Animated Sentinel Prime is a figure that I've had since I was a kid, so he isn't going to be in the best condition, but he does look absolutely amazing, even if he is just a deluxe. Which is my biggest problem with this Sentinel. He is too small. He is supposed to be the same size as Optimus, which he is next to the deluxe, but he looks like a child next to the Voyager. At least he scales up with Black Arachnia this way, even if the Voyager Optimus doesn't. This figure is such a great translation of his design by the late great Derek J. Wyatt. The shoulders bulge out from the pads, and that is just Sentinel all over, a massive overcompensator. But this will stay a consistent design idea in other Sentinels we'll be looking at today. The snowplow splitting is a great idea and wonderfully executed in plastic with some fantastic engineering. His slim waist and massive chest give him the feel of a bodybuilder who is really in love with himself, but also one that has a closet made of glass, sort of femboy. His thighs are skinny, but his shins are hulking, matching his arms with the massive hands. Side note though, is that the symbol of a leader that he has in his forearms? Magnus also has them, and I've always thought that it was the mark of authority. But back on topic. The head is just perfect. It has an expression befitting of the narcissistic dickhead that tries his best to fool the elite guard, but you can just hear Townsend Coleman insulting Thew. Mine no longer has his weapons, but let's just pretend he does. Now, Sentinel's articulation, which you're going to hear a lot in this video, well, Sentinel's articulation bit anyway, isn't that good. Even for the time, because Animated had some really great poses, like Blur, Leader Megatron, especially Leader Megatron, Animated Soundwave, they were all great. But this doesn't really do that. It's got a hinge at the neck, it's got ball joints, because I had this when I was a kid. A hinge at the neck, but that's a transformation. You do have the ball joint, can go up and down and side to side. Shoulders get hindered obviously by them, but yeah, they do a full 360, they are a bit loose. No, there is an in and out rack, but there's no swivel, nothing really to, you can't really like put these on, which are really undo the the shoulders there. Elbow, nothing at the wrists obviously. He does have a back crunch, but that's for transformation. Ball joints as we saw because they're very loose, so they can do all of that. Knee bend is very tight, which I think some dust might have got into there, but it's very tight. But yeah, the best. The transformation is simple and full of chunky clicks that create one of the best alt modes in all of animated, and one that is rare in the entire 40 years of the brand, Snowplow. You could barely tell that he transforms. That is just how close Wyatt and Eisenberg worked to get this design perfect. The wheels are pinned, the design is hefty, but it should be bigger, which our next figure does a little bit too well. 2011's Dark of the Moon is the film that took Sentinel from being a secondary character of the same rank as Optimus Prime to being a household name and the bot who came before Optimus. The leader is complicated. It's one of the last figures from the complicated era of the leader class, and it shows. The design from the film has been translated very well into plastic form. The sculpt is very detailed, but there are a few issues. The legs look great on their own, but they are too skinny for the overall design. And the same goes for the arms. This is all due to Sentinel's barreled chest and elongated shoulder blades. I mean, it's all for a good reason, it's due to the electronics. But, however though, one positive about this entire section. It is one of the very few Dark of the Moon Sentinels that doesn't use a faux chest. Despite my complaints, the chest is beautifully detailed. The head is good. It's not the best, it's clearly based on concept art, which isn't a bad thing. It just means that it doesn't look as accurate to the film as I would have liked, because yes, if you can't tell already, I love Sentinel Prime. However, it does have all the markers that make a DLTM Sentinel, from the head crest to the TFA-esque antenna. And he speaks. This figure's so big I'm having to like really put the phone as far away as I possibly can and you won't even stay. But yeah, you push this button into the chest and he speaks. And the lights light up and the mouth moves, which is very hard to show on here. But articulation, because the electronics ahead can't move much at all. The arms are on universal ratchets. Not really universal, there's a ratcheted swivel and a hinge here. Bicep swivel. Elbow, that's ratcheted. Wrist swivels and hands open, and you've got cape bits that can hinge and swivel around. Nothing at the waist, obviously it's from 2011, and it's got all the electronics. Legs can go up that far, and apparently they open as much as they want to. Legs kick back that far. If you move everything out of the way, they'll be kicked back that far. Knees bend less than 90, but they also go up less than 90, which is very strange. Above the knee swivel, so you still get the same. And you get a ankle tilt there, and then an ankle tilt here. And you've obviously got toe movement as well because of the way it transforms. But this is such a complicated figure. I'm now going to transform it and dread it. There's no getting around it. That transformation is arse. It's like licking the stingers of 5,000 wasps. Boris Johnson's handling of his own lockdown rules was better than this. But yeah, the fire engine is beautiful. This is my preferred alt mode for Sentinel, as it makes sense for Optimus' predecessor to be a fire engine if he's a truck. I do wish that this alt mode had the scratcher auto insignia like the Voyager, but hey, they didn't want to spoil the movie like Amazon did. The leader wasn't the only figure Sentinel got that was inspired by Dark of the Moon. He had 2 Voyager molds and a Cyberverse commander. The latter is the one we will be taking a gander at now. This is such a tiny Sentinel, but also one of the best. It is the spitting image of the Scream model, even with the most accurate face and a chest made from the proper parts of the fire engine. This is what makes this figure so special. Whilst his legs have massive planks attached to them, and the shoulders are loose. This is one of the best Sentinels, and it was less than a tenner when it came out. His weapons are great. He has his iconic sword that he can't do without anymore, and his shield, the Cybertronian glyph painted in black. These were handled with care. Unlike the leader, you do not have to worry when messing with it, but he does have a loose shoulder though, so. And the articulations are far worse than the leader, but what do you expect for something really small? No head, unless you want him to look up and down. Why isn't this focusing? Shoulders are on ball joints and hinges, so you can move them around, and you got the ball joint in there. Elbow. The legs are probably the worst, just because of how they work. Ball joints and everything, and you can do that with feet or move it up, but he's kind of flat, so he looks awkward all the time. He's a good looking figure, but he also just looks very awkward, and he can't pose for shite. The transformation is classy. This means it can be annoying at times, but it's fun and works well. It's like a chibified version of his Ultimate, and it's really cute. It does require the shield to transform into part of the roof, so if you lose that, then you're doomed. But other than that, really good alt mode. Last year, both Blockies and Transformers 1 took the fandom by storm, so of course they joined forces, and with Sentinel Prime being a major character in the film, they created 2 figures of him in both major classes, Galaxy and Classic. Galaxy Sentinel is cheap and well detailed. He is covered in metallic blues and golds, adding to his regal nature and status, being the icon of Icon and the saviour of Cybertron after all. But Classic Sentinel? That is a whole other story. This figure is beautiful, and honestly the best Blockies kit I have ever had the pleasure to build, even if my first copy had no forehead. This was the perfect version of the sexy Chad from the film until the Studio Series version arrived. Plus, this one can technically transform. This is my preferred look for this figure, as it has such a presence on the stand, especially when next to my other Sentinels. This also seems to be the figure's main priority, as the chest and overall design work better for the super mode rather than the regular. Articulation on these is really good, especially on this one for its size. So there is ball joint at the neck, ball joint for the shoulders, shoulder pads move, you've got bicep rotation and elbow bend, wrist swivel, waist swivel, legs are on ball joints, you do have thigh swivel, which is just above the knee, and obviously due to the ball joint you get a bit of wiggly waggly, and all of the foot movement that you could want. And we come to the back, and the wings are on ball joints as well, so he's really good for the size, especially for something that you build as well. Now the classic class here, if I take him off the stand, head, as you can see, is on a ball joint, shoulders are on ball joints as well. They can move up that far, but then they've got an extra joint inside of them, so the way they can do that. You do have bicep swivel there. They do come off because obviously it is a model kit, you do build it. Elbow bend, which, if I take the shield off, it does bend just below 90 degrees. Obviously in this mode there is nothing at the wrist, because there are no wrists, which is weird considering in the film this one didn't become a cannon for the shield just came on the arm, so there should be a wrist there, which is why there's only one of them on this figure. Waist does swivel, legs can basically do everything you want, in and out, but they can't go just because of the sculpts. Thigh swivel and knee, which is obviously very high, but that's every TF1 Sentinel just due to the design. And you do have ball joints at the ankle, and that goes for the same when you have the feet on. So yeah, both of them are very good. Just annoying that you can't really stand this one up in this mode without a stand. Because he just falls over. Now, before we get onto the main event, my favourite of the Sentinels, we need to look at the one that was released alongside the film. The Prime Changer. This was stupidly hard to find, and of course, now that I have him, he shows up everywhere. But that is great because it means everyone can enjoy this work of art. This is a fantastic representation of the villain from the film. Yes, it is cheap and has cost cutting measures to keep it that cheap, but look at him. Don't you just want to squeeze his cheeks before he complains about you making any small speeches? He's so cute, I love him. He has everything that makes the design so great, from the bell-bottom legs, the short thighs, the wings and the face. This is Sentinel through and through, plus you can kind of replicate super mode by placing the guns on his shoulders, like the film. The articulation on this figure is really great. It's basically the modern standard, apart from no wrists, which you wouldn't expect from something like this, that's so cheap. Head is on a ball joint, so you've got a tiny bit of wiggly waggly, but it goes all the way around. Shoulders are on mushroom pegs, so you can get all the 360 you want. And there's obviously this, can go up that far, and then on this hinge go up even further, which is the transformation hinge. Above the elbow swivel and more than 90 degree on the arms, there is a waist swivel. Legs kick up that far, then they go back that far. Thigh swivel, knee bend, which is 90 degrees, and then the tightest ankle tilts I've ever encountered on any figure from any line. And obviously the wings have a set of hinges. So yeah, this is really good for something that is cheaper than our regular deluxe. The transformation is very different and far from the norm of a jet form, and honestly, I prefer it to the Voyager and wish that the Voyager took cues from this. Despite him not transforming in the film, which is a great jet and clearly what they stuck with, as the Voyager is very similar. It's beautiful and gives off Dirge vibes. But now we get onto the very best figure that Sentinel Prime has ever received. A figure truly earning the title of the Icon of Iacon, the Transformers 1 Studio Series Voyager. You can turn this video off right now because there's going to be nothing better than this. Well, then again, this is already the last figure anyway, so there's no point. This is a wonderful Voyager and really surprised me, especially with the articulation. The face is spot on and really hits the nail on the head. The chest is proportional and has depth, unlike the classic and Prime Changer. The legs have the side panels that made him feel armoured in the film, and they even serve a purpose in this mode. They didn't have to add the blue on the shins, but they did. The cape he had in the film? How about making it a Dracula-esque cape, as this is a wonderful addition and feels like a dickhead who fancies himself a bit too much. There's just one problem. The shoulders sit a bit too low and are angled a bit weirdly. But that doesn't really bother me. The one problem that does bother me, even though I said there's only one, there's two, is the lack of sword. And that is where this upgrade kit comes in handy, as it gives him his most iconic accessory. It is beautifully painted, but sharp, so do be careful. It also comes with a gun platform for the shield. Want something even better? How about his super mode? You can just hear John Hamm saying, "What's wrong, D16? Rise up." This is my favourite mode for the villain with no redeemable qualities other than his looks and humour. I do wish that his laser guns were cast in the same grey as his forearms, and that the head crest was painted in gold to match the film, but this does look absolutely stunning. The articulation is great. I mean, obviously it's obviously got the modern stuff, but it's got something I kind of wouldn't expect. So the articulation, by the way, is the same in both modes, which is why I'm keeping him in the super mode. Weird ball jointed stalked shoulders. And I'm starting here for a reason, and I'll get to that at the end. You do have hinge at the shoulder as well. Can't really go a bit further than that. You do have, even with the shield on, little less than 90 degrees. No wrist movement, which with the way this transforms, I honestly don't blame it. Waist rotation. Legs kick up that far. Can kick back that far, and you do have a little less than 90 on the knee as well. If you have the legs like this, then obviously the ankle tuck's going to look weird, but if you have it regular, then it still looks weird, but not as weird. And you can also, if you have a flight stand, do that, which is like the regular flight mode. Wings are obviously a hinge here, and a hinge here. The guns also can move, and depending on if you have this bit on like I do, you can obviously move the guns up and down. But the head, if you can see here, can swivel, even look up. Even if you have the mask in, you can still look up and it can swivel, which is, I think, something they didn't need to do, but I'm very glad that they did. The jet doesn't look as good as the Prime changes, but it feels so much better. You can probably lob this at a door and nothing will happen to it. If it had the same shade as gold as the Prime changer, then this would be the perfect alt mode. But it wasn't in the film anyway, so just like a personal preference. So, Sentinel Prime. We've seen him go from school bully to anti-villain to just being a downright dictator with nothing left in terms of redeemability, and I think we need more villains like him. Time and time again we see villains go from heartless to being sympathetic, but we need more villains with nothing good about them. Heck, even now Megatronus is being seen as good thanks to one, but we need more villains that we can hate, and Sentinel is finally giving us that. I hope that he stays that way, even if I do love his moral ambiguity in Dark of the Moon. I have been Jinxed, and this is my look at the trial of Sentinel Prime. Don't forget to check my books out, the link will be in the description, and I'll see you in my next look at another character from the franchise we all love.